Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of What the Field. I'm Emmeline.
And I am Roman. Today, we're honored to be joined by Juliana Jaramillo from Rainforest Alliance, and we are going to be talking about regenerative agriculture in the Global South.
Juliana, welcome. Maybe you could start off by explaining a little bit what do you do at the Rainforest Alliance, what's your background, and what the Rainforest Alliance is all about.
Yes. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And first of all, thank you so much, Emmeline and Roman, for your kind invitation for me to be here today talking about my favorite topic. So I am the lead of the regenerative agriculture topic at the Rainforest Alliance. And for those of you who do not know the Rainforest Alliance, this is, as the name indicates, is an alliance of farmers, forest communities, civil organizations, companies, individuals, all trying to have more sustainable supply chains and also working in some of the most threatened natural ecosystems in the world.
Brilliant. So, Juliana, can you tell us a bit about some of the themes your organization works on? What topics?
Yes. We work on a range of themes that would help us achieve our mission, which is people and nature thriving in harmony. So as many people would know us for the environmental side, we also work a lot on human rights, on livelihoods, on forest communities, on climate change. So altogether youth, gender, all in the different areas we work.
And what are the programs that you offer within that alliance or network of farmers? Because I understand there's like different types of programs, right?
Exactly, yes. We are best known for the certification program. So many of you may know us for the Green Frog, but in reality, we do much more. We work on 4 main intervention areas. So we work on landscape level projects, on advocacy, the certification program, obviously, and then also on supply chain services, and they all work together to deliver our mission. For example, the supply chain services, they go beyond the certifications of companies that would like to go beyond and make a greater impact on their supply chains. And the landscape work is incredibly important because we take a broader view and we can achieve higher impact in them.
Right. Juliana, you mentioned certification, and I want to get a bit more into matter. How do you actually manage to scale it, and how do you measure it? Because obviously you work all over the world with farmers all over the place, and also very rural areas, which are very difficult to access. How do you manage that?
Exactly. So we work with about 2 million producers in 70 countries, around 5,000 companies. So it's a huge outreach, and it's not possible to do it alone. So that's why we are an alliance, and we have a very robust assurance system that is risk-based and data-driven. And we working in collaboration, in partnership with auditors, with what we call compliance bodies, different organizations that go there and have their auditors collect the data and check that to ensure the credibility of the program and to ensure that the requirements are met in the field.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
I mean, I think the work you're doing is great, obviously, because there's not a lot of organizations, I think, that have this focus of smallholder farmers in the Global South. But there has been some criticism too, especially pertaining to the fact that you do not require minimum prices for the sale of these products. So as far as I understand it, the farmer is not guaranteed a certain price, but kind of has to adapt to the global market conditions.
Yes, correct. Yes, we do not have a minimum price, and we are well aware of the criticism. However, in the 2020 certification standard, we do have a requirement for additional cash payments for certified crops. And to explain you a little bit why we do not have a minimum price is because we look at it holistically. You know, a farmer's success, it depends on crop quality, on productivity, and efficiency, as well as the sale price. So we focus on providing tools so that producers can grow their business, become more resilient, get training and management and financial literacy. So strengthening the system so that they are well ready for the market and to produce higher quality, which is independent studies have shown that usually certified producers do produce higher quality product.
It's always a hot topic, I think, and we also get that a lot when talking with our farmers. Like, how can you ensure that you're paying a fair price to the farmers for what they're doing? And it's a question we get very, very often. And Juliana, I want to get a bit more into regenerative agriculture and to talk a bit about it. I know you've been working on the matter for many, many years. And I want to ask you a bit about what differences you see in approaches to regenerative agriculture, perhaps in Europe. That is something we at Crowd Farming have discussed before. And what you see is happening with regenerative agriculture in the global south, for example.
Yes, it's a very good question. You know, I think the context is everything in regenerative agriculture. So you need to go first from the base, from where the farmers are based. What is their type of farming system? Are they small, medium, big? And farmers in Europe are like better cushioned. You know, they are a little bit more protected, a bit more. There are rules, there are clear rules, regulations, you know, etc. Producers in the global south are very often kind of left on their own, and this is where most of the support is needed to ensure that they can really make a transition that is not only profitable but fair. Yes.
And I want to bounce on something you said, because you mentioned about rules and regulation, and particularly for regenerative agriculture, I think it's a very muddy topic, if I may use that term, since there aren't clear rules, at least in Europe. So I can imagine it can also be very, very challenging to apply regenerative, or to start a conversation on regenerative agriculture when talking to a producer, I don't know, in Ecuador, for example, or in Africa, since also the environment is completely different. So trying to impose a global set of rules when the crops are diverse, communities are completely different, and the problems are also different from one part of the world to another.
Yes, you're totally right. And I think the most important and the approach that we have been taking is to go context specific, to see exactly what works where and what kind of practices can deliver the biggest outcomes, for example. So we always tailor our approach to regenerative agriculture, and we focus on the principles. You know, there is no agreed definition of regenerative agriculture out there. And that is a bit problematic because people tend to define it differently. We have taken a step to define it and to have particular pillars that this definition should have, and we are based this in the well-established, known, scientifically proven agroecological principles. So if you focus on your ultimate goal, and on top of this you put together the context of the producers, then you can tailor more or less what you want to deliver. To give you an example, we are in the last stages of piloting the regenerative agriculture program for cocoa production in West Africa. And in that particular setting, it is incredibly important to have the livelihoods piece taken into account. You know, you need to lift the producers out of poverty. You need to ensure that there are the correct incentives, mechanisms for them to make, have alternative sources of income, etc. But and that also the environmental outcomes are delivered. So I think the combination of focusing on your mission, focusing on the principles behind, and also taking into account the local realities is crucial.
And as a regenerative agriculture expert, would you say that it makes a difference in praxis, whether you have a certain type of crop or in which concrete location you're at? Does it make it easier or harder to actually apply the principles of regenerative agriculture if you're in, I don't know, an African country or an European country or a South American country, not in terms of, not even financially, but really more in terms of meteorological conditions, etc.?
Yes, it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference, and this for us this should be the starting point. It is not the same to have regenerative agriculture for an annual crop, cereal or something, that compared to a perennial crop. Normally, perennial crops are much more stable. You can produce a more stable agro-ecosystem where the relationships or the ecosystem services can be kind of established on the long run, because there is not constant kind of change in the vegetation. And the importance of the local environment, so the weather, the soil conditions, is also hugely important. You need to know how to reestablish the soil, what kind of species to use. When it comes to regenerative agriculture, the detail is, the devil really is in the detail. So it's not about planting trees, but it's about what kind of trees. Are these trees delivering on the ecological parameters that we have, but also from the, say, alternative income point of view, like what timber species, what food crop species, what is the arrangement. So in this sense, the actual designs of the systems in the different areas is very important.
Juliana, you've touched on also something that is a very dear topic to me, which is social impact, and how sometimes, for example, you go with a certification that says, for example, it's organic, but then you don't take into account the social implications of that farming method. And I want to ask you a bit about the relationship between certifications. So organic and regenerative, do you think it goes hand in hand? Is it the one a condition for the latter? So is organic a condition for regenerative? Because to give you the example of kraut farming, we only can work with a regenerative producer starting from the basis that they are organic. Is that the same for you, or do you have a different approach?
Yes, I think here to answer this question is very important, again, to look at the principles. So when you look at regenerative agriculture being a journey where you have on one starting point like conventional, very degrading agriculture, and on the other end you have regenerative, very clean, very reliant on natural processes, you go through different stages. And those different stages where they or steps that are published in the scientific literature is what we use to build the program and to build the scorecards that we use to measure regenerative in the field. Because when you are in this process, you go through three stages. One is efficiency, the other one is substitution, and the final one and the one where we want to get to is redesign. So when you take efficiency, for example, it's all about maximizing the productivity in this piece of land so that you don't compromise more of the natural world, for example. And substitution is where we start to see like organic products, So substituting one very polluting input by another one less polluting, and so on. And where we really would like to get is to the complete redesign, where we have systems that, because of their arrangement, because of their diversity of species, or the design itself, the question of Emily a second ago, you get to a point where you've established in such an extent the ecosystem services that you will not need inputs. So meaning you are going to be like organic by default. And that's exactly the point where we want to go with regenerative agriculture. So again, going back to what is the importance of crops, for example, and local context, this plays a role here for us because in the tropics and with the crops we work, it is you have dynamics, for example, in terms of pests and diseases that are really complicated. You don't have periods where they disappear. You don't have winters. You don't have kind of extreme changes that would crash a pest or a disease population, but you have these continuous ideal conditions for a pest, right? And since the producers in there have very little support and very little incentives, like also economic incentives to transition, we try to walk them little by little on this path to the pure regeneration. So we encourage them, like, first, please, to phase out all the highly hazardous pesticides, the pesticides. And as we go and advance in the journey, it gets tougher and tougher. And what we are asking for our alliance and for the consumers, for example, is please try to see what is behind what it is produced, because the price you pay for these products may be the difference, to have a product that can be completely regenerative, reestablishing these dynamics in the ecosystem to a point where nature itself delivers these services of pest control, of disease control, etc., and you don't need input. And that also plays in the economics. You after some point, you really reduce the costs. So it's like a long-term game, but it really pays off at a long rate. So it's not looking at the kind of the labels, but it's looking about, again, at the outcome and like, how do we want to get there so that we do not need the inputs.
So for you, regenerative agriculture ultimately helps us get rid of agrochemicals in the long run. So you would say that by applying regenerative agriculture practices, in the long run, we will no longer need agrochemicals.
That's certainly our hope. I think nobody has really tested the hypothesis, but we believe that with the right designs, with the right combination of species, with the right incentives, we could get to a very good point. I mean, we are seeing examples, for example, in Brazil, and we are not talking about half a hectare farms. I'm talking about 400, 500, 600 hectare farms of coffee that have managed to massively reduce the use of pesticides, for example, just by applying, say, conservation biological control. So it's something that if you have the right tools from the knowledge side and from the economic side, I think the chances are very high.
And Juliana, I think in your previous answer, you've hit the nail on the head with the implications of what the importance of economics behind what we see. And often as consumers, we go to a supermarket and we see two sets of bananas. The one is maybe €1 more expensive. I say, oh, well, I'm going to go for it. And you don't necessarily see what's going on behind the scenes. What do you think we should be doing to raise awareness about the conditions of farmers or the importance of certification of the work we're doing? I mean, we try to do our little with this initiative, for example, the podcast, which is, by the way, we're super grateful to have you here again. But what do you think consumers should be mindful of?
First of all, I think the work you're doing is amazing. I'm totally in love with the work, and this connection is much needed. And I really would love to see it growing and people really getting in touch with it, because what you're doing is it touches the hearts, it goes to, like, do not look at the product in the supermarket that says €1 or €2. Look at who's behind. Look at what kind of families are behind. They are there are faces, there are histories, there are kids, there are generations, and that's something that's very important, this consumer side and the awareness. But as with all huge challenges, it not only has to end up in the shoulders of few ones. Traditionally is on the shoulders of the producers, like sometimes the companies say just produce regenerative, or the consumers say produce cheaper and so on. But when you look at like all the actors, you can see, and particularly in the global south, that is my topic, is the incentivation. So the incentives go mostly for conventional agriculture, because we need to visibilize the business cases behind regenerative agriculture. We need to visibilize the long-term gains and rewards of regenerative agriculture, so that people can transition. I think this transition is very knowledge intensive, and that's why people are hesitant. So there should be an investment in explaining why it's important. And the change of mindset is huge, to be saying, we are coming from a model of conventional farming that worked at some point in time. It worked because it was meant to solve a problem, it's meant to solve a food security problem and so on. But in the conditions we are now, with a climate crisis, with a biodiversity loss crisis, with a livelihoods crisis, it doesn't work anymore. We need a new paradigm, and I think we all should join efforts and start putting incentives into regenerative agriculture rather than a conventional one, a polluting one, because it's not going to serve us well.
Absolutely. We're totally in agreement on that one, I think.
100%. And I think it's interesting because you've got in society perhaps the early adopters of regenerative agriculture, who are people who are committed and whose values really align with regenerative agriculture. But that, I don't see it, I personally do not see it here, at least in Spain. I don't see loads of discussion around regenerative agriculture in the media, or when you go to a bar, for example, you don't talk about regenerative agriculture. It's more in specialized circles. And it seems to me that, well, to my regret as well, that the economic case needs to lead regenerative agriculture to the masses in a way, and I haven't seen it yet. People are fighting for it. We're trying to do our bit, but it's sad that at the end it's an economic matter for big supermarkets or you name it.
Exactly.
That's going to have to lead it.
I think what you yourself mentioned, this kind of lack of incentives for the farmers, seems to be the main roadblock stopping the scaling of regenerative agriculture. I mean, we've been hearing that also from other partners in this space, like climate farmers, like Arbelar. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they all say the same thing, basically. They say no one's going to be paying these farmers to build the soil, to foment that biodiversity in their fields, etc. They're only being paid for yields, and they're being paid more for higher yields. And so they don't have the incentive to, or they don't have the finances even to practice something different than what they've been doing for these last few years. So really, we need to find a way to kind of finance also this transition to regenerative agriculture, right? Or what would you say are the main roadblocks, basically, for scaling this system that we all agree would be the way forward in terms of climate change, etc.?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I have good news. We are seeing in the last months, years, really big actors now getting involved on the topic and trying to make a difference. And this I think this is a reason to be hopeful and to think, okay, at least we are talking about it, and there are very powerful donors, etc., that see the importance. What I see here is like there is a lot of willingness, not so much knowledge about how to do it. And here, for example, the importance of agreeing on a definition of regenerative agriculture that is based on these principles, that delivers on multiple outcomes, etc., is very important. Also, the frameworks, how we measure it, so that it doesn't end up being just a greenwashing exercise and money-making operation for just a few. The awareness about the change in mindset, everything is going to be okay if we transition, and in there, a big opportunity for, say, the companies, governments, other actors to say, just do it. It's going to be okay. Science is showing you that it's going to be okay. I've got your back. I think that's the most important, particularly in the global south, because if you have half a hectare and you have 5 children to feed, and you have to send them to school, and you want some decent standard of living, if somebody comes and tells you, just change everything for regenerative, and perhaps in the first 2 years you're going to have a drip in productivity, well, chances is you're going to say no. But if you have someone who says, I'm going to cover the cost of these 2 years, and let's look together at how it's going to pick up, I think can make a big difference. Also, from the side of the consumer, like we know that there is no, the consumers do not really recognize what is regenerative. And I think the visibilizing the benefits of regenerative agriculture from all the angles, from the economic, from the social angle, from the environmental angle, beyond climate change. Personally, I'm concerned by a little bit by the carbon tunnel vision that we see all the time. Like regenerative agriculture means solving the climate crisis. We shouldn't look at this. I mean, we should look at it as a type of agriculture that we need to heal us all, to heal the environment, to heal the world, the agricultural world out there. And the mitigation, the reduction of emissions is one piece, but huge is the potential of biodiversity conservation, which biodiversity loss is one of the drivers of climate change. And that's like, let's look at it also about fairness, is what we say. What is behind this bunch of bananas? How many people, how many contaminated rivers or not, or etc. Yeah.
So you're saying basically to have a more holistic approach to the topic and not so focused on one single aspect, as I understand.
Absolutely, yes.
And one last thing, because you mentioned the general potential of regenerative agriculture to heal our planet or to heal the environment. And one major issue that's becoming more and more pressing now with the prolonged drought periods, and then suddenly we have floods because after a year without rain, it rains a lot, at least in Europe that's been the case. We have the problem that the soils are so depleted that they then cannot really even absorb that water anymore. So we have lots of problems. Our own farmers are experiencing lots of problems due to these the state of the soil and the state of the weather, basically. And so many people believe that through regenerative agriculture, we could reverse the damage to our soils in terms of reverse soil erosion and to a certain degree even desertification. Do you share this opinion?
I share, certainly soil health is one of the most important aspects of regenerative agriculture, and to me it's like the base. It's like for a human to have a good and robust immune system. That's how I compare it. If the soil is working, like everything up is working. So regenerative agriculture includes the principles of conservation agriculture. So like the cover crops and mulching, and extremely important is the building up the microbiome of the soil. So there's a lot of talk about the microbiome of the soil that ends up being, healthy plants, healthy animals, healthy humans, and so on. That's a huge area that is the key. Like we need to reestablish the life in the soil by allowing them not to be bare, to have species that that also bring other ecosystem services. For example, if you have little flowering plants there, you have more pollinators, you have natural pest control, etc., and the roots are improving the soil. So I think soil can make an incredible difference in there. We in the scorecards give us a special topic on soil health, on soil management and conservation, cover cropping, mulching, appropriate use of organic fertilizer or organic composts that come from the farm, so circularity aspects, etc. Because it's the base. Is the base. You have healthier plants that do not get sick, and then you need less inputs, less pesticides, for example, and like this, everything gets healthier.
Juliana, we're running out of time, but if there's something on your mind that you'd like to share, you've got your golden minute. So otherwise, happy to wrap up.
Yes, no, I think the aspects, I mean, like a key takeaways for me would be try to look beyond the supply chains. Let's try to look at a concerted effort at a landscape level with donors that are willing to fund this transition. The economic incentive is incredibly important for producers to transition. They have the knowledge. There is no one who knows best how to do agriculture than a farmer. So they need just this support. So the social aspect of regenerative agriculture, the consumer awareness, and what is behind the product. And regenerative agriculture will not solve the climate crisis. It can help. Try to look at biodiversity side of it. That's basically. It's really nice to be here, and yeah, it's a pity that we run out of time. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We are so grateful to have you here, to having had this discussion. It was fascinating. I personally learned a lot. So thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you also to our audience for being with us for another episode, for taking this little field trip to the world of the Rainforest Alliance and regenerative agriculture in the Global South. And I think maybe also as a message to everybody out there, let's try to not be so focused on our basically Eurocentric perspective and take into the consideration the conditions, the very different conditions in other parts of the world, because I do think that this is lacking sometimes in our discourse, that we're very much in our bubble and kind of almost blinded by our own circumstances, right?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for your invitation. It has been really a pleasure here.
Thank you, Juliana. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.